This video is part of a series of out-loud readings of character backstories. It's intended primarily to be enjoyed in the background. As such, it may be slightly different from the in-game version for listenability. Additional context also may be provided where appropriate. If you do find yourself watching, however, there will be background footage featuring the discussed character as we reach lengthier portions of the backstory. Today's featured character, Yangyang. Yangyang is a resonator born in Huanglong. She is currently affiliated with Jinzhou as an outrider of the Midnight Rangers. Once sheltered, now a fighter, she soars with the wind to protect others, like a skylark in flight. Forte Examination Report. Basic Evaluation. Resonance Power. Breath of Winds. Evaluation Basis. Resonance Assessment of Resonator 1011-G. The exact time and cause of Resonator Yangyang's awakening remains unclear. Resonator Yangyang reports heightened sensitivity to her surroundings since childhood. The tacit mark is located on the center of her forehead. Post-awakening observations found no notable physical change. As her Forte frequencies surge, limited feather-like transformations have been observed on the ends of her hair. Resonator Yangyang synchronizes with the surrounding air by detecting information in air streams in an energy field using converging airflow. The resonator spectrum pattern displays over 20% resemblance to that of airflow and smaller bird species. While a strong syntony reaction is present, the pattern also shares over 5% similarity with multiple other existing samples, indicating potential multiple or contaminating causes of awakening. Further analysis of test samples has revealed a non-convergent Rabble's curve with a stable rise. Occasional fluctuations within normal range have been detected. Therefore, Yangyang is identified as a natural resonator. Forte Examination Report. Overclock Diagnostic. The waveform graph for Resonator Yangyang displays stable elliptical fluctuations in the time domain, with no abnormal patterns. Upon examination, all results fall within normal parameters. In terms of resonant criticality, Yangyang ranks at a relatively low level with high stability. Further examination results appear to fall within normal parameters, with no current risk of overclocking. Maximum overclocking rating, negligible. Resonator Yangyang has a documented history of overclocking. During the event, Resonator Yangyang experienced emotional overflow and temporary loss of Forte control. Fortunately, there were no casualties or hazards reported, though she suffered several comatose episodes due to the overstimulation. Further examination revealed that Yangyang's heightened perception was causing harm to her body through her Forte. The after effects have since stabilized, but the feather-like transformations at the ends of her hair remains irreversible. Yangyang's overload has been managed and her emotional state is stable, with a positive prognosis. Routine examinations are recommended for monitoring purposes. Story 1. The Secret to Excellence. In any social group, there are those who exude a potent, reliable aura that convinces people they could achieve anything, despite not having started or done it before. Yangyang is one such person. People who often interact with her would always say, "Yangyang? She can do everything so well." Since her childhood, Yangyang has excelled in her studies, including etiquette, music, literature, mathematics, and martial arts. She always ranked at the top every year, to the point that she was often chosen to give speeches at annual ceremonies at her school. But, like everyone else, she would take a deep breath before speaking, hiding her nerves. Despite having talent for understanding complex concepts, she lacked true genius. While others may see her as successful and confident, she struggles just as much with everyday problems. In her first swordsmanship lesson, she struggled to control her swings and execute proper techniques. Despite the setback, she resolved to work even harder. For the next 2 months, she practiced 100 times a day, and often sought guidance from experienced seniors, humbly acknowledging her weaknesses. Day in and day out, she practiced, reflected, and asked again. Eventually, her muscles adapted. She could withstand several strikes from an opponent. In another 2 months, Yangyang once again emerged as the top student in her swordsmanship class. Her drive for perfection sowed concern. "Life is not perfect," some would say, while others stated, "You should be content with the quality you have already achieved." Yet all she instead thought about was if she was giving her all, if everything she did was to the best of her ability. So Yangyang would kindly reject this advice, knowing that her drive came from within, and not from seeking the validation of others. She was determined to push herself to perfection, leaving no room for regrets or shame. When she became an outrider and played a role in resolving a regional TD crisis, she was showered in praise. Yet her thoughts turned inward again. Yes, I may have succeeded this time, but how about next time? There were still so many things I could have done better, so many things I don't know. Perhaps I should seek advice from senior rangers. Being consistently reliable is daunting, yet crucial. It takes relentless effort and dedication, yet Yangyang remains determined to give her all to achieve this goal. She strives to be someone others can seek help from anytime, and won't stop until she succeeds. Story 2. The Secret to Listening. Most people don't know that Yangyang has a perfect pitch. Perhaps it was because how she was always a passive presence, never singing in public or taking the spotlight. She preferred to stay in the background. It seemed like she was born to be a listener. That's why Chusha was shocked at Yangyang's ability to accurately hum a melody she had only heard once before. She couldn't help but exclaim, "How did you memorize that so fast? And it sounded amazing! Good heavens!" Suddenly, everyone remembered Yangyang's other identity, the second daughter of a family of music. It would be unnatural if she didn't understand music theory or know how to sing. This revelation also resolved some previous confusion, that perfect way of dealing with people, that etiquette which seemed faultless even to the most demanding people. Yes, of course, she had to come from such a well-educated family. However, it also begged another question. Why would the daughter of such a renowned family go to the border city alone, at the expense of her otherwise luxurious life and promising career? Was there an underlying reason that compelled her to leave? If there really was such a reason, Yangyang never mentioned it to anyone. She never complained or avoided responsibilities, whether she fulfilled her outrider duties or when she spent time with friends. If one had to say, it was her outrider companions that bothered her more, because she was always patiently lending an ear. Many sought solace in confiding to Yangyang, not seeking solutions, but simply venting their stress. She knew this well and remained neutral, empathizing with the narrator's feelings. She listened without interruption, offering guidance when needed before returning to a silent role. With her help, the tangled emotions were quietly unknotted. These cathartic sessions proved valuable to many. However, Yangyang's support was not blind agreement. She offered advice, prioritizing the speaker's desires. Soon enough, Chisha told everyone else about Yangyang's amazing talent, sparking playful requests for a song. Yangyang shyly waved off their request, saying, "Maybe I'll sing later for everyone, when I'm ready." She looked sincere, so it seemed not just perfunctory or an excuse. It was truly what she thought from the bottom of her heart. But when would that be? Perhaps she wanted to wait until everyone else who wanted her to hear out their worries had finished talking. Understanding and critiquing performances requires a deep knowledge of music. However, being skilled in music does not necessitate taking the stage. So thought Yangyang, as she again chose to step back, allowing others to shine. Story 3. The Secret to Believing. The coming-of-age ceremony marks the time when the young make their debut into adulthood. For young ladies, it takes place at the age of 15, or 16 if you use a more traditional age system. Yet, to some extent, there isn't much difference between the then 16-year-old Yangyang and the 6-year-old Yangyang. Even now, she still holds the same expectations for the world, believing in the goodness between people, believing in miracles, believing that all things beautiful will eventually happen. Many would call this naive luck, the thoughts of a spoiled child who has never faced the harsh realities of life. Indeed, Yangyang grew up in a privileged and nurturing home, shielded from suffering. Her life was perfect. Until that fateful day. At age 11, her tranquil life was shattered by a ruthless attack from exiles while traveling with her family's caravan. The brutal reality of death and cruelty left her reeling as she fled and sought refuge among strangers in an unfamiliar settlement. These resilient people lived off the land, cautious yet resourceful. She was forced to fend for herself, adapting to this harsh new world at a young age. She couldn't tell if they were like the attackers or not. Their constant alertness made her question if it was safe to trust anyone. Dressed in fine clothes and alone, she stood out among them, and they too were suspicious of her. In the end, they passed food to her, and she took it, though she'd never seen anything like it. Kindness found its roots even in the most barren of lands. Yangyang wanted to repay their trust, but her knowledge proved not helpful, and her sword skills proved too childish against real hostility. Everything seemed entirely unfamiliar to her, yet this was the harsh reality most people had to face, and it felt overwhelmingly agonizing. One day, as Yangyang tried to help an old lady sort out the meager resources they had, she couldn't help but ask, "Grandma, have you been living like this all the time?" The lady responded, "Yes, but why?" "You shocked, city girl? Relax. Everything will be fine." Yangyang responded, "But when? Will things really be fine one day?" "Of course. How will good things come true if you don't even believe in them yourself? We were skeptical of you too, but we chose to believe. It's the same for you. Gotta have faith in something in life, even if you don't know how it'll turn out. That's what faith is all about." "But when, huh? Maybe when you grow up, little one." So yes, perhaps Yangyang hasn't experienced enough hardship yet. Or maybe one's inclination to show kindness isn't based on past experiences, but inherent in their character. In the darkest of situations, some will show kindness simply because others chose to trust them. And this, in turn, will spark more acts of goodwill. Ever since, Yangyang has always spread kindness to strangers, sparked by that one encounter. Of course, her kindness is not without boundaries. Betrayal can turn her warm breeze into a harsh storm. But she still holds on to hope, believing in the power of goodness. She chooses to trust and expects the best from others. This is her chosen way to make the world a better place. Story 4. What the Wind Taught Her. Yangyang has fallen into the winds 3 times. The first time was when she fell from her mother's arms. Shortly after Yangyang's birth, she was already surrounded by love. Her mother playfully swung her in her arms, pretending she was flying and landing. But when the swing went a little too high, Yangyang felt the whispers of the wind and sensed an approaching storm, even before she could speak. As she landed, her babbling was mistaken for fear from the accident, but it was actually a reaction to the oncoming tempest. The second time was when she passed out from sensory overload. As she grew up, Yangyang's once vague sensing ability strengthened, allowing her to feel intangible airstreams in her palms. She called them the streams, and they gave her insights into energy fluctuations, anomalies, and even the smallest physical details of a person. Trapped in a self-destructive cycle, Yangyang learned to explore her ability and gain more insight. But the more she tried to be thorough, the deeper she fell into a maze of details. What followed cannot be called a fall, for it was a descent through time, not space. The sensory overload lasted for months, between faintness and sobriety. Yangyang felt light as a feather caught in a raging storm, perpetually falling. Finally, Yangyang pulled herself out of the never-ending freefall and safely landed, telling herself, "I must focus on the key details within my reach, rather than trying to capture everything." The third time, but maybe not the last, was when Yangyang threw herself into the winds. The continual sensory overload altered her hair and taught Yangyang to tolerate the discomfort. Despite the stream's excessive information, she could sift through and extract crucial details. Signs of a struggle at a disappearance site, unusual fluctuations outside the city, and a steady rise in energy reactions. Yangyang had never used her ability in such a dire situation, but her determination to help overrode any hesitation. The streams surged, forming a distinct line, leading to a missing child being chased by TDs and teetering on the edge of a cliff. Without hesitation, Yangyang leapt towards the precarious figure, outstretching her hand to save the child. Feathers danced in the air, carrying Yangyang and the child in a gentle yet powerful wind. The child looked around at the floating feathers and asked, "Are you the lark fairy that flies in the wind, big sister?" Lost in memories, Yangyang smiled. She thought of the times when she fell into the winds again and again. Perhaps she truly was one with the wind. Story 5. The answer lies in the wind. On her journey away from home, Yangyang has met two kinds of people. The first kind always seemed in a hurry, yet remained unsure of where they were headed. They often ended up lost, returning in regret. The other kind always had a clear destination in mind. They always made it, despite arduous roads and occasional stumbles. Yangyang held up her head and looked at Jinzhou City on the horizon, unsure if she could be considered one of the second kind of people. Once again, she thought of the phrase, "one instrument for life." One instrument for one lifetime. That is the most important principle in Yangyang's family teachings. Originally, it meant that every family member could strive to excel in everything, but they must choose one musical instrument to specialize in and practice continuously throughout their life to become a master. As circumstances changed, the principle gradually evolved into dedicating one's entire life to pursuit, striving for excellence to make this life worthwhile. Her mother's instrument was composing. Yangyang had seen people dancing to her mother's songs. On the other, Yangyang's sister was already a successful figure in the Chamber of Commerce. However, Yangyang could not easily decide her own instrument as they once did. What was the thing worthy of dedicating her life to? What person should she be? She turned to her mother for help. "Mother, do you want me to inherit the family business? Or what do you want me to do? I can try anything, and I will strive for excellence. Although life is full of infinite possibilities, in the end, we can only choose one path, right?" Her mother looked at her with love and said, "My child, it is precisely because of this that you should not seek answers from me, but rather ask your own heart. This is a difficult question, but you need not rush an answer." And so, Yangyang held onto her question, waiting patiently for an answer that seemed to elude her. She waited through her return home from the desolate settlement, through the climb out of an abyss, and through growing weary of her family's overprotectiveness. The desire to join the world and experience its harshness grew stronger. No longer content with being a mere leaf drifting in the wind, she longed to bear the weight of reality instead of hiding from it. That was when a sudden ambush in the wilderness resulted in heavy casualties from tacit Discord attacks on the front line. News of this tragedy quickly spread throughout the city, igniting feelings of sorrow, anger, and despair among its inhabitants. Emotions boiled over, with people gathered around a bonfire. Tears flowing freely, hoarse cries echoed through the night. But by morning, grief had become a luxury, as life returned to normal. Yangyang stood among them, tears streaming down her face. She hadn't experienced any personal loss, but witnessing their sorrow and the joy of the rescued children stirred something inside her. It was a transformative moment, as she realized her true calling, to protect others, just as she had been protected before. She wanted to shield them from misfortune, and give them hope for a brighter future. As Yangyang stood at the edge of Jinzhou on her enrollment night as an outrider, she gazed at the sky and the bustling residents below. Doubt crept in as she questioned her ability to protect these lively citizens, a responsibility she had always dreamed of fulfilling. The streams came from afar and gently held Yangyang in their embrace, dispelling her last bits of doubt. They silently whispered, "Jinzhou is the place. It is the destination for Yangyang, the wealthy daughter, and the beginning of her journey as Yangyang, the outrider." Yangyang's striped ribbon. Yangyang's blue beret always has a delicate ribbon attached to its brim. It's her signature look, and a precious gift from her mother before she embarked on her journey. To Yangyang, it symbolizes her mother's blessing and marks the start of her own journey. She holds on to the resolution she made when putting on the ribbon, determined to see it through until the end. Yangyang Sound Recorder. As Yangyang grew accustomed to the constant presence of the streams, she began to contemplate capturing the fleeting sound of the wind. With the help of Baijia's modifications and innovative energy conversion technology, a device was created that could store the streams as visual and tangible information. Whether it be the gentle sound of snow falling on a mountain, an untold story, or a poignant moment that brings tears to one's eyes, Yangyang now had the ability to record these realities that her senses were tuned to. Yangyang's All-in-One. Yangyang has been crafting wind chimes since she was a child, using polished jade crystals in the shape of birds as plectrums. Starting with just a few, she has now collected and gifted dozens of them to her loved ones. Each one is different, with intricate designs that evolve over time as Yangyang adds new plectrums and adjusts their placement. She sees it as a never-ending journey, with endless possibilities for interpretation. Despite not knowing what kind of melody the wind chimes will eventually create, she stays true to her original intention, a lifelong pursuit of perfecting her craft, just like her family's tradition of one instrument for one lifetime. Thank you for listening. If you want to leave a comment, feel free to do so. Have a nice day.